Hey everyone, what's up? We are back, episode 13, Rip City Real Talk. Craig Moshkow, Anthony Playlock here to break down some of the recent stuff that's been going on. We've only had a couple games this week as we came out of All-Star break, so not too much to talk about there, but definitely some stuff to cover and some other interesting news from ex-Blazers that we're gonna talk about. Quite a bit of stuff coming up there. So yeah, we'll start it off. We're gonna actually go back to shouts and pouts. We're gonna start off with that like we kind of used to do. We're gonna try to get back into it. We have a slow week this week, so we figured we could get back into doing that. And I guess I'll let you start with your first shout and pout.
Let's do it, man. Well, we only have a couple games, so mine's going to be more of a global theme, right? We're going to go off of how we've been playing for the last few weeks, pre All-Star and post All-Star break. I'd say right now, one of the biggest things for me as far as shouts go, I'm sure we're going to cover it a lot on the pod, but Carmelo Anthony has been unreal. His shot making, his defense has been better than people say. Like, it's actually been very formidable. And when you're watching Melo, he's been a bucket lately. So I think that's probably one of my, and I was really hard on him in the preseason too. So it's hard, I'm not the biggest Melo fan, and that we've been critical of him on the pod all year, but man, big shout to him this last 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. We'll talk a little more about it, but I would share that same sentiment with you. I think I've said it a couple of times that he looks a little more spry. His legs, especially, I'm seeing more cuts to the rim. He's passing a little bit more than he was before, which we talked about. We wanted to see him do a little bit more of. But yeah, I mean, realistically, especially from three, he's just been shooting really well and a lot of clutch buckets. Last night was a huge example of that. And so yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. What about your pout?
I hate complaining about this, but man, Gary Trent Jr.'s shooting 3-point especially has been a little inconsistent at times, and the Blazers are going to rely on him as that kind of when Dame gets trapped, and I don't know what's going to happen when CJ comes back. I don't know where Gary Trent's minutes are going to be, but I have to think that he's going to get 17 to 22 minutes a game still. His 3-point shooting has not been the pressure valve, the release valve that it should be for us. He's been missing open threes. He's taken a lot of contested ones. I know that he's comfortable in the offense, but there's just something going on, and I'm sure that shooter's got to shoot. He'll get it back on track, but I feel bad complaining about Gary Trent Jr. because he's a gem. But man, his 3-point ball has been kind of rough lately. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think it's streaky for sure, but like you said, I mean, you got to let them shoot. These guys are going to go through ups and downs as the season goes on. I don't know. Maybe there is a mental block. Who knows? Maybe he's hearing trade rumors, and that's only a couple weeks away. Maybe he's uncertain about his future, and that's bogging on him a little bit. It's tough. It's hard to say because there's no difference in what we're doing offensively. I mean, we're doing the same things. We're trying to get him those looks, but yeah, I'll admit. I mean, he's been streaky. It's been a known issue. The media has been talking about it. You see fans bring it up here and there, and quite frankly, again, I mean, we'll get more in depth with this next week, probably the week before the trade deadline. But with the trade deadline coming up, and outside of Hood, I mean, Trent's one of those guys that we're going to have to start making a decision on, and I don't think they'll move him this particular trade deadline. If anything, it's in the offseason, they either let him go or they try to sign him they match a deal and then move him then. But if they were to look to do it, you want to see him doing good before kind of that showcase right before the trade deadline's coming up, and I'm not seeing that. So a lot to uncover there as far as the Blazers shooting goes. But yeah, I would agree that it's been a bit of a disappointment for sure.
Yep. What else? What about you? I want to hear some shouts and pouts out of you.
Yeah, for sure. So my shout is Nasir Little and the dunk game that we are starting to see. He is making the types of dunks that I expected Derrick Jones Jr. to make coming into the year.
Yeah.
He made a dunk last night, and I'm sorry, like that was unreal. Going through four guys on his and just going up and getting it. He had another one where he got his own rebound. He didn't quite dunk it, but it was still the jumps to get his own rebound off his own shot and go back and put it up on a layup. I love seeing it. I mean, his shooting's been streaky, sure, but it's been consistent enough to make me happy from what I'm seeing from him as far as getting his experience and his minutes in the game. But man, watching him go up with that ball and showing that athleticism and that size that he has, and it's been awesome to watch. So I mean, keep that up, keep driving to the rim because Lord knows we need more attacking of the rim on this team right now. So
right. Yeah, Nas is so good, man. I almost want to just see him get 30 minutes just to see what he would do with all 30. I think that his defense probably isn't quite there yet, but gosh, he looks good.
Yeah, he
What's
has
your
the
tout?
length to eventually turn that around. I mean, more minutes you get, the more, you get more used to playing
Yep.
against these guys and different players and learn patterns and tendencies. So I think he'll definitely be a rotational player at least going forward for this team. So it's great to see. I've been pretty
Yep.
stoked about that. But man, watching them dunk has been fun.
Mm-hmm.
And my pout, this is a tough one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really just don't know where I want to go with this. I mean, I've complained about it quite a few times, but I will say my pout so far has been obviously it's Rodney Hood again.
Mm.
Just giving him minutes right now. It's not even Rodney Hood. We've talked about the
Yeah.
injury and not really playing up to par in the contract. I don't, you're paying him $10 million to really not do much. But the fact that he's out there taking minutes away from
Mm-hmm.
potentially a guy like Nasir Little, granted, not much. Nasir's playing more and more lately, but it's still taking minutes away from other guys.
Yeah.
But I'd rather just shut him down or, play him in situations if you get in foul trouble or another injury pops up and just trade him. Be done with it. I don't know. I just feel like the position with Nasir kind of popping up and he's been doing what he's been doing, and eventually Trent's going to go back to the bench, and
Yeah.
there's just not going to be a role for Hood anymore. And I'm done seeing him play. Like I said, I know that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
It's nothing against the guy because I like him as a player. We turned his entire career around when you think about how he was getting ready to quit basketball, and he kind
Mm-hmm.
of put a new spark in him from Portland and the injury hit. But I don't know. That's a personal side. As far as the business side goes, for the team chemistry and the roster right now, I'm done watching him get
Yeah.
minutes over here like this year little.
Yeah, he's not doing anything. I mean, his 22 to 25 minutes, he's giving you 6 points, a few rebounds, one assist. It's literally nothing. And then when you look at guys like Little, they make splash plays, they make big plays, they make shots. There's flashes. There are mistakes, right? And the mistakes are huge. There's times where Derek Jones and Nasir Little make mistakes, but Hood is just not good. I mean, he has just been kind of killing us all year. I think that Stotts is trying to play him back into this pre-Achilles injury shape, and he's trying to get him comfortable. I also think that there was a promise that if he signed with the Blazers, we would give him a certain amount of minutes, and it's kind of a slap in the face to take away his 20 minutes. But uh, I hope CJ when CJ gets healthy, I just hope the Hood minutes are gone. We can talk about expiring deals and what Hood's deal looks like at the trade deadline, but we can do that later. But man, I agree with you.
Yeah, so that's pretty much where I'm at with it. And then the shot and pout kind of coincided with each other because I want to see more Sear doing what he's been doing and give him the experience to get better and better like Trent did last year. And in order to do that, you got to play him 20 plus minutes a game, potentially off that bench, over what Hood's getting. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Cool. Okay, so let's go to Phoenix real quick. Boy, where do we start? Okay, so Phoenix, we look great, played great for 3 quarters. For the first 3
the game we won.
Yeah, I was gonna say 75% of the game looked great. All of a sudden, about 10 minutes left in fourth quarter, I think everyone collectively holds their Blazer breath and the game slips away. I saw something the other day on Twitter and it kind of resonated with me. And they said that the Suns, Utah, the Lakers, and the Clippers all have a gear the Blazers don't have where they can get stops in the fourth quarter. And the Blazers just don't really have that upper echelon gear defensively. Now, we know that, but also we tend to beat the teams we should beat and lose to the pretty good teams. I mean, Phoenix is a great team. They're the second team in the West. They're fighting for first place in the West right now as we speak. So I don't feel terrible about the loss. I just feel terrible that we couldn't close out a game we were winning.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be tough all year without CJ there to spark the offense. At different times you kind of rely on the 3-point shot, and then you defensively. We've talked about Jones all year. He just seems invisible to me too many times. Covington's been doing better. I think, like I said, we talked about him getting more comfortable in the defensive role. He's getting stops. He's gonna make mistakes every once in a while because again he's trying to make up for other guys not doing their assignments correctly, and he's trying to go help inside and giving up open threes, etc. But Jones to me needs to step up more. I need to see a little bit more of him. The athleticism's there, and that's great. He's been hitting the 3 ball a little bit better, sure, but I'm not seeing him slow, not necessarily lock down, but slow guys down. It just seems to be an issue with me. They put him on Booker a lot. They put him on Chris Paul a couple times, and I just didn't see. They're still doing whatever they wanted to do. Too many easy buckets, too much driving to the lane. Too many easy kickouts to open threes. Just bad defense.
Yeah.
And we obviously the story all year has been Portland's bad defense, but it's just tough to see why. Like you hope when Nurk gets back, you get a little bit more of a defensive presence because Cantor's great rebounding, he can score great, but Nurk is a different type of defensive anchor down low, especially if he gets back into form where he was. And then maybe you talk about defense being better with Covington and Jones out there, able to not have to worry about sucking into the middle so much because Cantor gets out of position. But I don't know. I would have to agree that, yeah, unless you can start kicking up the gear in defense in those kinds of situations, you play good all game. Your offense can carry you for the most part, but if you start hitting lulls and you can't stop another team, if you don't have that gear you mentioned,
Yeah,
then we're going to be a 5, 6, 7 seed in a play-in tournament, and who knows?
yeah. It's so I do think a lot. Okay, we can't leave out injuries, right? Cantor is not our starting center. He's done a fantastic job filling in, but he's not our starting center. Nurkic is our starting center. He's our anchor defensively. The other thing is CJ is our second best scorer by far. I mean, what was he averaging? 26 points or 25 points a game this year? He was a collective. He was, I thought, an all-star even in the loaded West. When you don't have those two guys, it's going to be really tough to hang with these teams night in, night out. The other thing is we're playing Rodney Hood, Nasir Little, and Anthony Simons 15 plus ish minutes a game, right? Which is fine. It's fine. They're NBA players. But the Suns are playing Mikal Bridges. They're playing Devin Booker. They have Chris Paul. They have Ayton. The Suns have more weapons, and I think that they were able to utilize those weapons. And Stotts threw a lot of stuff at them throughout that game. I don't know what the Fire Stotts crowd really wants. I think they just see us losing and the defense is bad, so they just assume that it's all Stotts. There's just not much the Blazers could do about that, I don't think. I mean, I agree with you on the Derrick Jones Jr. and the defense and stuff like that, but it's just hard to hang with those teams that have all those weapons. And I know that there's no excuses, but man, it's got to be tough.
And realistically, I mean, for a while there, we were doing pretty good against playoff teams. I went through and I kind of took a peek at some of for the most part, up until realistically the All-Star break, and kind of taking a look at our record against teams that are in playoff seeding in the East and the West. And realistically, we were, I think, I don't remember the actual number now. I had it, but I lost it. But we were about 2 to 3 games below 500 against playoff caliber teams. So overall, not great. But you did beat Philly twice. You split with the Lakers so far. The Clippers and the Jazz you lost to, and this kind of one of these games you start getting into the Phoenix games and the Denver games, and those are the ones you want. And now you're 0-4. Really, the last couple games that you played against Phoenix twice, Lakers, Denver. And you're beating the Kings. Great. You beat the Warriors. You would think the Warriors, oh, that's a good team. They're not a playoff team right now. They're not a playoff team in the West. And then you barely beat Minnesota last night. So and we'll talk more about that in a sec. But I agree with you. It's just you get to that point where you almost rely too much on Dame and you rely too much on the 3-point shot. And then if you're not hitting shots, you don't have the defense to keep up with some of these teams. And we're kind of one-dimensional. We don't have a lot of ways to score right now. It's a lot of just offensive rebounds and hoping that you get those put back up. And Dame's doing his darndest to get people involved. But it's been pretty tricky to do that in regards to the Stotts thing.
So one thing I would take away from the Phoenix game that was positive is I thought Ayton was going to have a field day on our front court. I really did. I thought, okay, Ayton's going to be a mismatch. Chris Paul's going to feed him. They're going to go to lobs. I thought Stotts threw a lot of stuff at Ayton and really kind of confused him. I do think that that guy's a tough shot maker, man. You don't have to like Devin Booker. You don't have to think Devin Booker's on an all-star, superstar level like Damian Lillard, like Curry. But that guy can make some tough freaking shots, and he just got us, man. And we struggle one-on-one defensively with those guards. I think Devin Booker is the prototypical. You can throw Derrick Jones Jr. on him and hope that he can ISO defend him, but a really good shot maker is going to beat a really good defender 75-80% of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's tough because that's why you brought Jones in here. I mean, you brought Jones in here to be able to use his length and athleticism and speed to be able to kind of slow down some of these wings and guards. And he's just not doing it right now.
Yep.
Not to be negative on him, but he's not giving us. I don't feel like he's giving us anything on the court
Mhm.
that makes me feel like he should continue to be a starter, and even on this roster. Like, you come start talking about trade pieces and assets of that level, I'm almost to the point where it's like I'd rather trade him in a package or something and try to get back a veteran wing defender who can shoot the three consistently,
Yeah.
all of PJ Tucker or somebody like that that can come in and kind of, again, do the same type of role, but different. It can at least, give us some kind of a scoring from a 3-point perspective, or be a little more physical. I don't know. I haven't been impressed with Jones. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, Booker is one of those guys that you expect Jones to go up against, and you're right. You're absolutely right. He's going to be good defenders all the time. So
Yeah, it was frustrating. So we so we played Phoenix. We expected on the podcast that would be a tough game. I didn't expect us to win 3/4 of it and then lose at the end, but oh well. The
uh,
T-Wolves last night, Timberwolves are, they're just not a good team. They have a few good players, but their roster is really top heavy with 2 good players, and then everybody else is really not great. What did you see in that game? What did you like, and what are you looking for out of these Blazers in these games?
well, so here's the thing with the second half of the schedule. I talked about it in the keys of the game leading up to that game, and you got to have we play them tonight and we played them last night. You had to have both of these. You have to. You brought it up earlier. You actually made a good point. We're beating the teams we're supposed to beat, and that has been the main reason that we are where we are, standings wise, and still in the hunt and surviving the no Nurk, no CJ dilemma that we're running into. So I just kind of, I don't expect to blow them out. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, they've only won 8 games. They're the only team left in the league that has single digit wins. That's pretty sad. But they've been banged up. They haven't had Russell. Malik Beasley got suspended. He's their second best scorer points wise.
Yeah.
Russell's obviously been an all-star, and he's a big loss to them. They have a rookie with Anthony Edwards who's very streaky, low percentage guy
Mhm.
who gets a lot of volume and has all the makings of a good NBA star in the future. I mean, he can definitely drive, he can definitely shoot, but he's raw and he's inefficient. So really, it comes down to Karl Anthony Towns.
Mhm.
You expect him to do some work against you, but he got his season high. That bugs me. It bugs me because you have to know that they're going to go to him like a lot, and
Yeah.
he can't do it by himself. You have to be able to show him at least a flash of a double
Mhm.
at some point in time to make him get that ball out of his hands, because he's just putting up easy jumpers. It's too easy. He
Yep.
shouldn't be getting 34 points. The guy averages like 23. I don't know. So
Yeah.
he got his season high against us. I expected them to get a big workload. Of course, everybody who watches basketball is going to expect the biggest star and the only player to do something, but you also have to slow it down a little to
Mhm.
some extent. But I think that I read some fans posts and people were talking about, oh, you should just blown out Minnesota. That's a terrible game. They were without 2 of their best players and you only beat them by 4. Yeah, but we don't have the weapons to blow people out right now. So
Yeah.
you have to take these close games against bad teams for what they are. They're more competitive than they probably should be. And at the end of the day, we we scrape by, and you got to be happy with it. I mean, Carmelo had a huge game again. He's been on fire. I don't want to say that I brought it up at the beginning of the year when I was talking about how good Carmelo was going to be on the bench, but I will. I think it took him some time to definitely get his legs
Yeah.
under him, and that's a big reason we won. Is our bench was just better than their bench in the end of the game, and we were able to
Yeah.
keep Carmelo and out there even when Lillard was kind of having another one of those streaky nights where
Yeah.
just looked like himself. And
It's weird though if you check the box score. So Lillard had 25 with 10 assists, 5 rebounds in 36 minutes, right? It's nice to keep Dame under 40 minutes. Thank you. Melo had 26 and 6, and his 6 assists is a lot for Melo, and then he only did it in 31 minutes. I mean, when you're looking at Melo, there's nights where it's inefficient, but what else are we gonna do? You know what I mean? Like if Dame isn't on and he's not on that 100% scorched earth mode, you got to have someone get you buckets. And there's no other better isolation scorer on this team than Melo, unfortunately, until CJ and Nurk are back and healthy and we can figure out some semblance of a motion offense again. If it's going to be ISO, it's got to be Dame or it's got to be Melo. That's it.
And I kind of wish they would use Cantor a little bit more down low. I wish they would feed him a
Yeah.
bit and do some work. He has some of the best footwork out of a big man in the league, in my opinion, out of the
Mm-hmm.
post game. He's not going to hit jumpers like guys like Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns and
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Davis, etc. But man, he can, if he gets down low, he's big enough and can move well enough to really put some pressure on some of those guys. And I kind of wish they'd do a little more of that. Dame fed him a lot.
Yeah.
He drove in and kind of would do those little kick passes to him, and he'd go up and get his easy layup, and that's great. I mean, Cantor had 20 plus points. I think he ended up with 20 or 22.
Yeah, he did.
So
I have it right here.
that's fine. And I just wish they
20
would
and
run through him a little more,
Sure.
And take advantage of some of the situations. If Karl Anthony Towns isn't out there, and they got Nas Reed or whoever they want to try to throw out there, Cantor's on the floor at that time.
Yeah.
I feel like they need to feed him a bit more. And
Yeah.
Dame's been trying to get other guys involved. That's why he had tennis, the amount of assists he had. And but I don't know. I just feel like some of the guys involved, if they're not hitting their shots, you got to change things up.
Absolutely. And I don't know, man. I mean, sometimes there's too much Rodney Hood. Sometimes there's a little bit too much Covington if he's missing. But I think Covington just has to let it fly. That's just his job in the offense. If he's open, he shoots it. That should be no question. Whether he's feeling it that night and he's got 20 points and he's stroking it, or whether he's hit 1 in 5 threes. If he's open, you have to take that shot. The other thing is Gary Trent Jr. is just, I don't know, man. Like, it's just so inconsistent. He got 14 in that game, but I wouldn't say it looked pretty.
No, it's a quiet 14.
Yeah.
I don't feel like, I mean, he hit the one in the fourth quarter there. That was a pretty big shot, but it seems to be disappearing a little too often. And that's what I've been worried about with him as a 3-point shooter and just being streaky as it is. He doesn't give you a lot of other types of scoring. I mean, he'll take advantage of, he had a layup where it was straight to the rim and it was easy. He's getting smart enough to start realizing when he's going to have a good mid-range shot or be able to take it to the rim, but he's still not executing at the rate I'd like him to see. And he doesn't have that in him to create it himself. He's a very opportunistic scorer. So you're going to see these types of games where he gets a little low in the scoring or he kind of goes quiet, but his big thing is he has to hit those open threes. At least at a good clip. I mean, you're not going to hit every one, but like 40%, that's his average right now. You expect him to continue to hit 40%. And in big moments, hitting big shots that can really start to separate you. That's where I'm getting a little concerned about some of his production lately. I don't think it's a permanent thing. I'm not going to sit here and knock him, but in the last couple of games, especially, he's gone too quiet at too important of times when they're making runs.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's been my biggest complaint with Gary Trent Jr. In the bubble, he was great, right? And there's times where this year he looks great and he drops 24, 25 points. He shoots 40 plus 40%. But the thing is, man, we already have Dame and CJ. We already have a ton of money allocated to our guard position. I don't think we should retain him. And if you're not going to retain him, why don't you swap him out for someone that you will want to retain? So something that got pitched to Danny Meringue this week, and not to start like the trade talks or anything like that, was flipping him for Matisse Thybulle straight up. So you take Gary Trent Jr. and flip him for Matisse Thybulle. Matisse Thybulle is a big three. He's a big 3-and-D. He's young. They just drafted him 2 years ago. The Sixers really can't pair him up with Ben Simmons very well because neither one has a great like outside shot yet. Anyway, I don't think we should retain Gary Trent Jr. I don't think we should pay him like a 3-year, 80 million, whatever, 3-year, 70 million contract.
Like you said, we'll get into that talk probably a little harder and more in depth next week. But as far as his role in these recent games, I need to see him bounce back. I hope he bounces back tonight. It's back to back. So, that's already tough. Playing the same team on a back to back, which is just tough for any team. I don't care if you're the Lakers, Utah, or anybody. It's a tricky situation to be in. So you're going to have a guy like him step up because I don't think Carmelo is bringing it as hard tonight. We'll talk about the upcoming games, obviously, but he's got to be tired. Dame either needs to take over a little more, but to me, Trent's the big factor tonight. So
he's the X factor.
I would just say he has to have a good night of shooting because we shot 32% for three.
Earlier, we were talking about Melo earlier, and you said something about where is he at in the all-time scoring list?
He just got to 11. So
11.
Olajuwon for 11th. Yep.
Is he going to crack top 10 like this next couple weeks?
Got to be soon. So I don't remember the exact number. I'd have to look it up, but I know he was about 400 points away.
400? Oof. Okay.
About 400. So yeah, it's gonna take a little more than a couple of weeks, but he's definitely gonna get there. I would say within the next month. If he keeps up the 16 to 20 plus points a game, that's only gonna take him.
So he is at 11 behind Elvin Hayes, who had 27 3 613 points. Carmelo has 26,955. So yeah, about 100-ish or 400-ish points right now.
Less than 400 sounds like. So yeah, I think
Top 10.
yeah, I think it's definitely doable. And I mean, he's going to get there by the end of the year, no matter what.
Sure. Sure.
We only have so many games left, but I do think he gets there, and that's a pretty cool accomplishment. I mean, he's going to do it as a Blazer. He's going to get top 10 on his second year with us. He's only played with a couple teams more than 2 years, so it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm stoked for him, and the fact that he's come out, and we talked about the last couple of weeks, especially what he's been able to do in the team, the bench scoring, taking advantage of teams. He's getting that rep back. That's been a big thing I noticed. I mean, you saw a point in the game last night where the coaches, he got the ball against Herman Gomez, and they're like, come, double team him.
Yeah,
and
he's getting that respect.
Him.
I saw a thing the other day on one of the NBA Twitter feeds, just one of the hoops hype type things that said that he's drawing interest from teams in free agency this coming year. Like people are already ramping up to try to get him because he's been so good for the Blazers, and he's been, I hate to say it, but he's been essential for us. I mean, in most of the wins this year, very few of them featured a Carmelo Anthony getting less than 16 to 18 points. If he gets 20 plus, we have a really good chance of winning that game. So
yeah, it's just been consistent. I mean, he started off a little sluggish. We complained about the jab shoot thing, but that's been the biggest difference with this play to me is I don't see as much of that. I mean, he's still taking advantage of an ISO game in that mid-range spot. If he has a guy on him that, if you haven't played at least 3 years in the league, good luck. And he's taking on even bigger guys and shooting over him. But it's that plus the drive. He's threatening more at the rim. He's been getting offensive rebounds. He's been out there fighting down low, which I think is a big deal because that's like New York Carmelo. I mean, that's something he's averaging. So that kind of stuff, the passing. I mean, he basically won the game last night on that pass to Jones down low.
Right.
I mean, got that ball and just immediately zinged it down there. Knew exactly what he was going to do. The IQ was there, and that basically won the game. I mean, that was it. That pretty much locked it all up. So, hey, if he's going to keep doing that, I mean, he's the perfect player on our bench right now. I mean, I don't think he should start, sure, because the defense just isn't still there. I mean, he's playing better. He's getting a lot of deflections, blocks, a couple steals. The defensive stats look fine, but he's still kind of sluggish on the perimeter, and that's gonna happen. That's not when he's out there to defend. So it's still been really great to see. And I mean, if he keeps this up, not only is he going to get top 10 all-time scoring, it's going to be a question for the Blazers in the offseason. Is he one of these guys that you continue to bring back? You have to pay him a little more. Like what? I mean, there's so much loyalty to Portland a guy's going to give if he thinks he can end his career getting a 3-year deal at 6-7 mil.
Yeah, I just shudder to see where we would be without him this year. And in the preseason, I was like, why did we sign Melo? Why did we sign him? And now it's very obvious that he has a role on this team. And when CJ comes back and Nurk come back, he's still going to have a role on this team. I still think he's going to be that bench scorer. I still think he's been good enough and he's been able to take advantage of all of the mismatches. If he gets a guard on him, it's over. He's shooting over that guy, a la Kevin Durant style. Melo's been good. He hasn't been great. He's definitely on the tail end of his career, but there's times where you can see he's got it, and that footwork is nasty.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see what he can do with Trent and Cantor back in the defensive or second unit, I should say, with him. Getting those guys open a little more because teams start having to throw doubles at Melo. With the way he can pass the ball, I mean, you're going to start to see some open looks from some of those other players that get out there, and that's going to benefit Trent especially. We're looking forward to that.
Okay, so do you want to go through some of the games coming up and talk through these like just a little bit this week?
Well, let's finish with that. I want to touch on some of the other stuff we want to talk about. We'll get back to the upcoming games as we kind of recap everything. So first thing I want to start with is it's been a big conversation piece from media and fans alike throughout the last couple of days since it was announced, but Spurs and LaMarcus are parting ways. Sounds like they're still trying to trade him. There's no timeline on him. He's not playing with the team right now. They basically have sat him. Who knows if they decide to try to take their time to the trade deadline. I imagine that it's not going to take that long because I'm sure they're out there fielding interest, and I'm sure there's a lot of teams that they're talking to. I don't see a team giving up assets and clearing $24 million to bring him in for the rest of the year. So I think it's going to end up being a buyout. I think at this point you've you burnt that bridge if you're San Antonio. Maybe not like in a negative impact, but you're not gonna listen. If you're not gonna trade him, you're not gonna start him. Like you're not gonna bring
Yeah.
him back. Be like, okay, well you're playing again. Sorry, we couldn't move you.
No.
They've
So
already agreed to part ways. So I think he gets bought
yeah.
out.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing. So I think that's something that's worth mentioning. Okay, the Spurs want something for LaMarcus. You can't just give them a second round pick and take LaMarcus because you have to take the $20 million in salary back. So you need to give them something that's going to be worth $20 million to even out the salaries. That's why I think it's a buyout. And that's why I think Andre Drummond is going to be a buyout too. How the heck are you going to make the salaries match, even if they just want young assets? You're not. So these guys are going to get bought out. Now, my question is, there's mutual interest, and there has been mutual interest from LaMarcus. Are the Blazers interested in financially, could we make it work on like a vet minimum deal?
Oh, well, the money is not going to be a problem if he gets bought out, depending on how much, he's willing to take a pay cut. But you've seen guys like Griffin and, we've seen guys like Corver take these different deals to go play on some of these teams to do their darndest to get a championship or to what have you. I think we're in contention.
Mm-hmm.
We're still a competing team. I think LaMarcus will come back. I think he will come back at a lower deal, even if it's a $5 million deal. You could probably make that work if you're Portland, depending on future plans, depending on if you think you may trade Hood or what have you. Regardless, even if the team stays the same, intact, money wise,
Mm-hmm.
I think you could afford to bring it back, and I do think he would come back. I think it'd be smart for him, to build his legacy that he has here. He didn't really do much for the Spurs. They never won the championship that he wanted to win with them.
Mm-hmm.
They were competitive. Sure, the Spurs are always competitive, but I think there'd be something that coming back to Portland in his mind, finishing his career here, even if it's the rest of the year, if he plays good enough, maybe you bring him back for another 2 years or what have you. Let him end here if possible.
Yeah.
And we definitely use another type of offense than what we have right now. I say that specifically because I think that we could use something other than the 3-point ball right now. And it'd just be nice to see him back in a Blazer uniform. I'm sorry, I'm one of those fans, man. I'm nostalgic. I still have my Aldridge jersey in there, all tattered and battered, and doesn't fit my fat belly anymore. But I'm gonna wear it on there like a nice little tank top it is, and I'm gonna go out to the games, and I'll be happy to see him back in the Blazer uniform.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't watched a whole lot of LaMarcus's ball the last 2 years. It's just we just don't watch a lot of Spurs basketball. I think the Blazers would welcome back with open arms. I don't think it's going to happen. I think you and I agree it's probably like less than 25% likely. We are the second betting favorite as far as Vegas goes. But the thing about LaMarcus is he's going to want to win a championship, right? Like that's going to be his ultimate goal. He needs to get a ring on his resume to stand up. I don't know, man. I just don't think it's going to happen. I'm very like realistic with this, with these the buyout market to me is not going to be a huge deal for Portland.
No, because not with these types of bets. I'd have to agree. I mean, chances are he goes to one of the LA teams. I could see him going to Milwaukee. I don't know. I could see him going to one of these teams that's already a top team right now that could use another big. Even more so than us, because that's the other side of Portland is a matter of fit. Everybody, I've talked to some fans, I've talked to some people on Twitter, and I've had some discussions about it, and I've read some people. A lot of people think that he's forced into a 5 role. He's forced into a center at this point in his career. I disagree. I personally think he could play the 4 for us, and he could line up with Nurk because of the type of offense that he gives you. I still think he can pop and shoot like Carmelo. I think he can fit that same role of getting on the one side of the offense. You run a lot of your offense on the other side. You get it back to him in some ISO scoring, and he's going to shoot over people. We saw a lot of what he was doing when he played against us, the one game that we had with the Spurs this year. He killed us off the free throw line. You can get him into a position where he can still just be a jump shooter on his own little island, his own little world in that starting unit. And I think it would benefit us tremendously with the amount of offense that Dame and CG are already going to get, to be able to throw that ball out to a one-on-one LaMarcus Aldridge right now inside the 3-point line. I just think it would be a blessing for us. And you don't need to play him a lot, 20 minutes, and then put Carmelo back in there and let Carmelo do the same type of offense in the second unit. But there's a lot of people that think, oh, you're not going to bring him in because what's he going to do? Replace Cantor? No, Nurk will still start when he comes back. Cantor will still be your bench center. LaMarcus could play the 4 realistically, with the type of offense he can give you, I mean, defensively, yeah, you're going to struggle a little bit. He's
Mhm.
not going to be able to defend on the perimeter, but he does give you length inside. And my goodness, I'm sick and tired of seeing teams just driving on us and kick the ball out. So making guys think twice about trying to kick it on Nurk and LaMarcus.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, you got to be able to get back out to an open shooter, but you can design your defense to have the open shooter potentially be on the opposite side of LaMarcus. So Covington can slide to the three and get out there with his length and start covering some guys. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, how do you think his fit would be? Like, do you think he fits the offense?
Mm. I think he does. I mean, I think he would be a really nice mismatch to utilize when Dame gets doubled. I think he could play. I think he'd be a really deadly pick and roll with him and Dame. They've already done that. They did that in Dame's first 3 years in the league. I don't think he needs to play center. I don't think he wants to play center. So if you sign him, he's probably not wanting to step up there and play 5 minutes. So we will see. I think the fit would be great. I really do. I don't know minute wise in the front court what you would do. Like, are you going to cannibalize Melo's minutes? Are you going to split their minutes in half and do 20 and 20? That part, I don't know. The other thing is, people forget Melo could probably play the three as much as he doesn't probably do that a lot in his career. We could run a bigger lineup and play them together. But I don't know, man. I think people overthink this stuff, and it's like if he's bought out and you can get a really good player at the tail end of his career who can still give you minutes, a la Melo, give him 2.5 million, or 3 million, whatever the vet min is. And if he's willing to sign in Portland, you're not going to say no. You know what I mean?
I 100% agree. I think if he comes in, you start him. I think you have to start him. I think that allows you to slide Covington to the three, where
Mhm.
personally I think he's better suited.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
and then I think that allows you to put Jones onto your bench,
Mhm.
which, we've talked about limiting what that does to a guy like Nasir and what have you. But I'm fine with Nasir losing a little bit of minutes if it means
Yeah.
that Jones is your backup three. That way
Mhm.
you're not messing with Carmelo, you're not messing with Cantor, Trent's still starting, and you still have Anthony getting his run because I do think that he's the future at the guard position for
Yeah.
us as far as
Well,
the combo.
and if you want to show, you want to show Dame that you're willing to go all in for a championship, you're going to sit Nasir Little and DJ Moore. You know what I mean? You're going to sign a guy like LaMarcus who gives you a better chance to win a championship than Nasir Little does right now. And you're going to give him those 20 minutes because you want to keep Dame hungry. You want to keep Dame in this small market, knowing damn well Portland's going to do everything Neil can to chase the best players available and give you the best chance to win. And I'm sorry to say that right now, Nasir Little is just not that as better than LaMarcus. DJ's not. Covington's minutes, he's a defensive specialist, but you would be willing to shed some of those minutes to give Dame another scoring option to take the pressure off of him and CJ.
And I would love to see Jones on the bench personally. I mean, I already talked about I haven't been happy with him. I think it gives him a better chance to thrive offensively.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with him and Carmelo, I've already kind of got a little. We saw it last night on the pass that he makes. Him cutting to the rim with Carmelo getting ISO, make a pass to him will probably allow him to be more involved than he would with Dame and CJ and Nurk. And Covington gets more of the threes than he's going to get. So he's kind of, you don't play a lot offensively, and your job is to really just be a defensive guy. When you're not as good at Robert Covington is, you just kind of get yourself out of the game. Like you're not
Yeah.
mentally. I think he'd have more of a role. We need defense on the bench. I mean,
We
Trent.
do.
We talked about Trent. He's an all right defender, especially on ball, but he's not a good rotation guy. He's not. He ends up chasing some of these other guards around a little more than I'd like him to.
Yeah.
And with Cantor and Carmelo, they're not giving you defense. So to put Jones on the bench with his length, to go out there and just hopefully slow down some of those bench scoring guys that
Yeah.
we tend to struggle with, I'd love to see. And if that means Covington goes to three because we're giving Carmelo 20 or LaMarcus 20 minutes to start,
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that. I don't think he needs to play a lot of minutes. I think he starts a game, he goes out there, you get him hot, and you bring him back in if he's on fire later, and you just do what you're doing right now. You're just giving him Covington's minutes
Yeah.
and allowing Carmelo to continue to do the exact same thing he's been doing. So
Yeah. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I mean, if it happens, Blazer fans are going to be excited. I think it gives us a better team overall, and it just gives you more mismatches that you can exploit, right? There's lineups that Stotts could use that he can't tap into. We need as many bodies as we can right now because until and we don't even know what Nurk and CJ are going to look like when they come back. With feet, you don't know that CJ is not going to come back, play 5 games, and re-aggravate that injury. Feet are very prone to getting re-injured. So I don't think that you can just scoff at any player right now that gives you an upgrade in your lineup. So whatever.
you think fans are gonna be happy if he comes back after what he did?
Yeah, I
You
think
think
fans would be stoked, man. I think even the most harsh Blazer fans would welcome him back and be excited about LaMarcus helping us chase a championship because you know, the other thing that people overlook is San Antonio in Texas is Marcus's home, right? Like that's where he wanted to play. He didn't just go to the Spurs because he wanted to win a championship and he thought that they were better than us. He wanted to go there because it's home, and Texas has, I think, no state income tax, and there's just all these different reasons why you would want to go to Texas, right? You want to play for the best coach that's ever coached. That's Greg Popovich. There was a lot of factors I feel like he chose, and Kawhi has since left, and there's been a lot of turnover on that Spurs team, and Popovich
very
is probably going to be gone too. But man, like LaMarcus didn't leave Portland because he hated Portland, and he hated Dame, and he hated our organization. There was just other factors that led to that divorce.
Yep, agreed. I was curious. So, yeah, I agree. That's all we need to touch on that right now. I mean, we're ways
Yeah,
off until we know what happens with him. Now, if he gets bought out, we'll obviously talk a little more about it
yeah.
and discuss it further. If he ends up coming here, of course, we'll touch on that too. But
It's funny
just
because you prefaced him like 3 weeks ago. You said, "Hey, did you know LaMarcus got benched?" And I was like, "No, I had no idea." And so like then the whole thing just spilled out after you went through that. So you basically you prefaced it 3 weeks ago. You called it.
yeah, I prefaced that on a segment. It's a good point to transition over
Oh,
on a segment that I've for all the fans, all three of you that actually listen to us. I have my official title for calling this segment. It's a Blazing New Trails X Blazer of the Week.
okay.
That's it.
And
I could probably even
it's
get out the X Blazer. Blazing New Trails Player of the Week. All right. So
okay.
we've done this a couple times. In this
Okay.
segment, we like to talk about a player that was once a Portland Trailblazer who is now not a Portland Trailblazer. If there's anything newsworthy to talk about with them, we talked about Mason Plumlee just for kicks and giggles, getting his triple double in the last week, and obviously Carmelo or LaMarcus was our original, ex-Blazer that we talked about when he got benched originally.
Mhm.
We've already covered the LaMarcus thing, so we're not going to focus on him because another Blazer, ex-Blazer, is very important in this particular segment, had some other news that was pretty worthy of talking about, and that was the Hammer, one of the first Blazers jerseys I got the only one I got from you for Christmas. Thank you, as
Mhm.
a joke, I suppose. Although I wore it with plenty of pride, and
Yeah.
that is the X Factor, Myers Leonard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ugh.
so Myers, he said something. He said
Yeah.
something inappropriate that
Mhm.
he probably shouldn't have said. Obviously,
Yeah.
he's you know I don't know if you would call it racist or not. I don't believe it is considered racist, but he definitely said something offensive about the Jewish
Yeah.
community. He used a
Yeah.
particular term that carries some weight, as a
Yeah.
negative impact on a culture and a people. He shouldn't have said that, and now he's feeling it, man. So
Yeah.
what do you want to talk about in regards to that
So
subject?
so they hit him with a fine, $50,000, and then they suspended him indefinitely, or did they announce the suspension?
It was an official week that he's away
But he's
from
hurt.
team. Yeah, he's not playing this year anyway, so he can't be at the team facility or in the locker room, etc., for a week. He was
So I'm curious to see if they cut him or if they do something with him in the offseason. The other thing that I'm curious about, and I think the bigger global impact is going to be he was streaming on Twitch, which he set up, right? So he was streaming himself. He had been Twitch streaming all year playing Call of Duty. He was hurt, so he had the time, right? I think what you're going to see is, especially from the organizations and the agents, are going to say, if you're going to stream on Twitch, you better be like it's like you're in the limelight. It's like you're doing an interview, and you have to treat it as such because these places of social media or media in general, you can lose your career by saying the wrong thing on Twitter. You can lose your career by saying the wrong thing in an interview, and you have to be not, I mean, as a superstar and an NBA player, you have to be more cognizant of what you're doing in your audience. You really can't ever make remarks like that in today's society, and you really can't do it when you're streaming yourself on a video game. It was foolish, it was stupid, it was ignorant, and he apologized. And in his apology, he said, "I didn't know what it meant."
Well,
That's not really.
here's the thing with that. So about that piece of it, I can believe that he didn't know
Sure.
the impact and what it meant. I only say that because I told Nicole about this, and she's like, I have no idea what that word means, but she understood it was bad. And I still think that he understood it was bad. If he didn't think it was a bad word, you would have never used it to complain about the gosh darn snipers. Like he meant for it to be a bad thing. I don't believe that he meant it to be a bad thing towards that specific community. He wasn't trying to bash, the Jewish community. And I don't think he hates Jews. I think he just said the word because he knew it was a bad word. He was just trying to be descriptive in the moment. You still have to be aware of that. I mean, that's a particular word that you don't just throw out there. Like you don't.
I'm just glad I'm glad he's not a Blazer so that our organization doesn't have to deal with this right now. I feel bad that the Heat do, but their organization can sustain it. I'm curious, do you think he'll play again ever?
I mean, yes, I do. I think he's still at an age where he can still be productive. He has a specific skill set where he can still be productive. He was a good part of why the Heat went to the finals last year. I think he's gonna have to, make some not necessarily adjustments into his overall behavior, because all that's an obvious factor, but he's gonna have to make some efforts to do, some charity work. He's gonna have to. Apology is not gonna do it. Everybody apologizes. Anytime a celebrity gets in trouble, they have probably somebody writ it for them, but they have an apology and they post it on the Instagrams or what have you. Sure, but he's gonna have to make more of an effort. Whether you believe that he should have to or not. I mean, there's some people that think, oh, everybody's too soft, or there's some people that think it's that's so offensive, and there's some people that's in the middle. It doesn't matter where you fall in that particular path. Like he's gonna have to do it now because, like you said, he is a celebrity to some extent, at least in the basketball world. He's a basketball player. So he'll have to make a good effort to climb back out of this hole that he's unfortunately dug himself into. But I can see somebody else paying him later to play. It won't be a lot anymore. The injury already kind of settled that, but I don't think he's done. It's tough because you see the way of Ray Rice in the NFL. There was the whole punch your wife in the elevator, and then there's also Kareem Hunt, who was on video kicking a woman while she was down. He's back and playing and has a great role and a productive role in the Cleveland Browns. And Ray Rice, we have never seen again. So you don't know. I mean, it's tough. Different organizations are going to handle these situations differently. We've seen some NBA players with some sketchy pasts and other aspects come back and they continue to play. I think this is a little more forgivable. I do think this is more forgivable. I mean, I don't want to say that to offend anybody, but it's just, I think it's one of those things that, with obviously proper training and etiquette and education and the whole 9 yards that he's about to go through, I think you'll see him get another chance. It's tough to say because, again, you don't know how fans are going to react to him. Like, if you're a team and you're bringing in a guy like this, I mean, are you worried that your fans are just not going to come because they're going to protest what he said? I mean, do people even remember it a year from now? Like,
probably not.
You'll hear Myers Leonard and it'll be in the back of your head, like, oh, he's the guy that said that thing. But I mean, in a couple of weeks from now, when he's no longer in the spotlight and he's not on Twitch, it's going to die off eventually. And so, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I think he'll come back personally, but
we'll see. I mean, if he was a player of like Dame level talent or LeBron level talent, there'd be no question, right? But because he's kind of that fringe, your backup or sometimes a backup to your backup, it'll be interesting to see. But I hope he does play again. I hope people get over it. I hope his apologies and his education and his moving forward and taking the right steps, I hope that people are accepting of that, because if you can't accept that someone is able to grow and move on and do better in their lives, then what's the actual point? You know what I mean? Like, everybody's made mistakes, and I'm not saying that it was okay or acceptable, but you have to be able to accept an apology and hope that he can grow, I guess, was what I would put. So that's our opinion on it.
And that's the other thing. Like, he's typically known. I mean, the people around him, he's not known as this kind of a person. Like, he's never really said anything like this. He tends to be involved in the community pretty heavily. He was when he was here too. So just that's the news that we have for ex-Blazer. It's obviously a big one. It's an interesting piece when it comes to esports in general. And I agree with you. It's an interesting thing to touch on because does the league come out and ban guys from playing Twitter for streaming
It's
Um,
good for them. It's good for the leagues, but
I think,
they have to be careful. It's just like having athletes on Twitter. You got to watch what you say, and you got to be sensitive to all audiences at that point, because even if just a few people are offended, it can blow up. When I first saw the clip, I didn't think it was going to blow up like that. I didn't actually think it was going to like go crazy, and then NBA Twitter just went nuts and they blew it up. And so you just got to be careful.
yep, fair enough. Okay.
All right, man. So today we play the Timberwolves again. What's your confidence rating that we get a dub 1 to 10 tonight?
I feel better about tonight,
Yeah.
personally. I mean, I talked about being a second of a back-to-back, tired legs, especially when you've been relying on Carmelo on the bench. How he comes out and plays is going to be interesting because I think he's going to be a little more tired. You know, you're going to be 35 plus years old back-to-backs. They're a little trickier on you, especially if you're being relied upon.
Yeah.
His point in his career. Dame's got to step up. I think tonight he's going to have to, not that he didn't step up, but 25 points is well below his average. I know he wants to get guys involved. I get it. But at some point, you're going to have to really get yourself going because you can't be cold going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And he ended up pulling off and he hit some good shots and he did Dame stuff. Yeah. But I'd like to see him start off a little bit hotter. Trent, we've already talked about it. He just needs to hit shots, like plain and simple. We shot 32% from 3. That is atrocious for a team that is going to shoot 40 plus threes a game. You have to hit more than 32%. That, to me, that's the only reason they were involved in that game. They're going to go through their guys. They're going to get chunks. They're going to go on little runs here and there. That's going to happen. But you can't run your offense from the 3-point line and not hit the 3. So I expect that to be different. I think they'll be a little more on fire tonight, personally. So I feel good about it. I think they're not a good team. If this was like Phoenix or even a fringe play, one of those teams in the lower part of the bubble in the playoffs, like a Charlotte or I don't know, the Mavs right now, I would feel worse. Just like Golden State earlier in the year. They're not a playoff team. We played them back to back. We beat them pretty bad the first game, and they came out and whooped us the second game.
Right.
I don't feel like Minnesota has the ability to do that, so I think we'll be all right. I think it'll be a better result.
And then, so on the point of back-to-backs, which is just part of the second half of the season, I don't know how it got all scheduled up this way. So this week we play a back-to-back against the Pelicans, and then 2 games, so back-to-back against the Mavs. Now they are spaced out with a day in between, not like today where we play them literally back-to-back nights. We play 1 day off, 1, and then we do the same thing against the Mavs. How are you feeling about the Pelicans matchup and the Mavericks?
Again, Pelicans have been a little weak to me. They have a lot of young talent that I feel like they should be better than they are. With all the hype around Zion coming in, he's been playing good and he's an all-star, but I don't think like him and Ingram are taking over games like people expected them to take over games. They lost a lot of their defense. When you let a guy like Holiday go and Steve Adams gets hurt, they just don't have the defense, I feel like, to keep up. I mean, they can score, but they're just a young team that you get in close games and they're not able to finish close games. They're not able to get the stops, kind of like us. They struggle defensively. It's tough, but it's one of those teams you have to win. You have to beat a team like this right now. You're just you're days away. I mean, you're games away, a week or so away from having you guys come back and see Jay and Nurk.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel good about it. I feel good about both games. So we played Mavs back to back, right?
We play them. Hold on. So I'm pretty sure it's Friday, Sunday. Hold on. So it's Friday, and then we have Saturday off, and then Sunday.
Oh, shoot. Special guest?
Yeah.
Oh, it's all right.
Okay. Sounds good. So it's Friday, then we have Saturday off, and then we play them Sunday again. So here's the deal.
Not back to back like in the same, like the 2 nights in a row, but still, it's the same situation.
So here's the situation. I think both of these teams don't have great defenses. I think we should just spread it out, and as long as we outshoot them, both teams, I think we'll get. I would say 3-1 would be ideal in that stretch. What about you?
Yeah. So yeah. I don't know. I want to say yes, I do. I worry about the Mavs a little bit. This offensively, we struggle against them. We let Luka do whatever we want. It was a close game the last time we played them. So if you can slow down their stars, I mean, you're going to slow them down to an extent. But if you can just limit them, I don't think they have enough scoring to keep up.
Yeah.
If you're on with your shot, I think 2-2 is more reasonable. I don't think you 3-1. I think you split with each team. Personally, I feel like that's very possible and probably the most likely scenario. Again, playing 2 teams back to back like that, it's tricky to be able to get your adjustments. I mean, it's like a game of chess. Teams get better the second time you play them. So if you slip on the first one and you lose, you're the team that's probably going to come out in the second half, know what you want to do and how you lost and win, and vice versa.
Right.
So I think it's more reasonable to say against teams like that who are fringe playoff teams, a little bit better, a little more competitive, that you go 2-2 at best.
Okay. Well, we're feeling good about it. So just to recap what happened this week too, we were going to have Dia on, but she was dealing with a COVID situation. So we hope that everything goes well. We haven't got a whole lot of updates, but we hope that she's healthy and her family's healthy.
Sounds like we're still scheduled to have her on next Saturday.
Good.
So yeah, it didn't work out. She had the medical issues. We're becoming a bad luck curse. Some of these guys.
Yeah, we are, but we're going to turn it around. So next week she'll be with us. We're going to talk about trades. We're going to talk about the second half of the schedule. She's a great podcaster, so I think it'll be a really fun. I think it'll be a fun, positive, interesting podcast. So come over next week and hang out.
Actually, with the trade deadline like 4 days after, it should be a lot of stuff to be able to talk about. Rumors will be flying around at that point, so we should have a good, hot and heavy podcast. And I think for the most part, and will officially be you and I's first podcast, probably in person.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you're going to come out here.
In the old LeGrand. I'll be out taking me out in the town. I'm paying for everything. Appreciate what you're going to do.
We've been talking about this for a while, so we're going to make it happen. Next week should be us together, and then we'll bring her in via Zoom. So it'll be fun.
Yep. So that'll be what we're going to do. We appreciate the support again, like every podcast. We want to thank everybody for watching.
Yeah.
I know we're going to work on trying to get the audio only. That's going to be a thing that we're going to work on doing to try to get on Apple Music. So we'll give you some updates on Twitter, follow or Facebook for that.
Yep.
So that some people that don't want to watch this on YouTube, we've gotten some feedback from people that it's hard to watch on YouTube because you can't leave your phone open and you can't have the background audio. You have to figure out how to do it. I don't want people to have to mess with that. We want to be accessible.
Yeah.
But
so we're going to work on that this week.
Check us out. Facebook, we're on there. We're working on getting Instagram up and running, but YouTube, subscribe, hit the subscribe button if you haven't. And continue to follow us. We'll continue to give you the news. We appreciate the support.
Yeah, and with that, thanks for coming, everybody. Hopefully for a great week with the Blazers, and we will see you next Sunday. Peace.